An emotionally abusive relationship means you are with somebody whose way of being in relationship is all about power and control. It breaks you down and it rewires your brain to align with this idea that you are the problem.
Valerie Jones is an author and host of the Selfish Woman podcast, a global sisterhood redefining what it means to put yourself first. She leads women far beyond the survival into bold reinvention.
Self-care, we love that. But selfish is devotion to yourself.
I take people through a lot of workshops. I've never heard somebody say the word selfish.
It's a very confronting word, but what if for an entire year I put myself first? That launched me into incredible growth, healing, and it was very different than what I thought it was going to be.
How'd you do it?
Every problem is because of man's inability to sit in a room by himself. And that's what I did for a year.
How do you start women down the path to be selfish?
Where we start is
Valerie, to let us all be inspired by your wisdom. So great to see you.
Hilary, so good to be here. Oh my gosh, I'm buzzing too. This is such a treat and such an honor. So thank you so much for having me here.
Don't you think these types of shows are so fun? I felt the same thing coming onto yours. It's just like, how lucky are we that we get to sit here, we get to have a cup of tea, we get to be talking about what lights us up and sharing some of the, school of hard knocks, the wisdom that's come with a lot of relaunches.
Totally.
So what I'd like to do is I'd like to start with the most significant relaunch that really changed things for you, changed the trajectory of your life and where you are today.
Yeah. And that is really the crux of everything I do is my relaunch story and experience. And it came out of so much pain and hardship and confusion. But, I was divorced. I got married at 20 and got pregnant by 25. And 24 years later, I was getting divorced in a very explosive way. We had a very dysfunctional relationship and I'd never really grown up. I didn't have the 20s to figure out who I was. And so I was just along for the ride and we got divorced. I had 3 kids as a stay-at-home mom, no degree, no career, no money, gave all my financial power away to my husband. And there I was. And I was like, okay, now what? And, a friend of mine called me up and she said, I'm training to be a life coach and I'm looking for practice people. If you want to practice, if I can practice on you. And I was like, hell yeah, sign me up.
Okay, so we're talking, wait a second. You got divorced at what age?
I was, 44.
Okay, 44 years old. Interesting. I got divorced. I got separated at 39. And it took us about 7 years to actually get divorced. But that's a tough place to be. I had 3 kids, you had 3 kids. And all of a sudden, as you're talking, you got married when you were 20. Tell us a little bit about that. What happened there?
I was raised in a family. I've learned recently that it's called a low effort family, where it's just, and it made so much sense to me. It's just, there's no effort put into who are you? Who do you want to be? Who are you becoming? Nothing. And so there was just this void of a sense of self. I had no idea who I was. And this guy came along who was dynamic and had goals and dreams. And he was so exciting. And he was desperately in love with me. And 3 months later, we got engaged because I was like, okay, why not?
3 months. 3 months, but you stayed with him for a long time.
I stayed with him for a long time. I'm a Leo, birthday season right now. I am very loyal.
Girl, I'm a Leo too. I knew there was another connection for us.
When's your birthday?
August 18th.
I'm August 20th.
Ooh, I love it. So you're on the cusp, right?
We're on the cusp.
Virgo? So good.
Yeah, so good.
So good. Yeah, that's why you have this, you need to be on the stage. Yes.
So I'm a Leo. So I'm very,
put you there, right?
So I'm very loyal. But what we found out later was my husband was bipolar. He was also a diagnosed narcissist and an alcoholic at the end. So it was a triple threat. Ooh. So we got divorced. My friend said, I need practice clients. I said, sign me up. She coached me for a year and it changed my life. That changed my life because she helped me learn about myself, believe in myself, start to take action. And after that, I was like, I want to do this for the rest of my life. I want everything I've gone through to help people. And I love this modality. So I became a coach. That was 11 years
Okay, but
ago.
wait. Let's stop here. Wait, I need to go back here. First off, I found it really interesting. I hadn't heard that terminology of low effort family.
Right.
And knowing you as I know you now, it's like, it's almost like you were the black sheep, right? Like you're so high effort, like you're doing
Yeah.
everything. I mean, this whole idea of like, the selfish like woman,
Yeah.
I mean, all of this. So it's just so interesting that you were able to come out of that
Yeah.
realizing, which means there's a lot of belief systems. We'll get into that. But you said that this coach had you learn about yourself,
Mm-hmm.
had you take action. Give us some examples of what she had you do
Mm-hmm.
in that first year.
Well, she certainly got me out of victim mode in a major way. I didn't realize I was in victim mode, but I certainly was. And she got me out of that. And she taught me about how to take responsibility for myself. I didn't know how to do that. And going back to low effort families, they generally produce one high effort child. That would be me,
Interesting.
youngest of four. But yeah, so she got me out of victim mode and she taught me how to take responsibility for my life, for myself, for my results. That changed everything. And that's the one thing I will say is everything I took from that was personal
Mm.
power, personal authority, sovereignty, that I am in charge of my life. Now I had a long road ahead because 2 years later I got married again because I was like, that sounds good. I'm all good to go now. I've learned my lesson.
Oh, can I tell you? I'm going to stop you right there because this is so true. People think, okay, I've worked on myself. I've done the hard stuff. I've worked for a year. But don't you think that personal growth, I call it self harmony, like trying to really, it is trying to get to that next level. There's always a relaunch rise. There's always rising to the next level.
Mhm.
There's always that growth aspect. So, 2 years later, you get married.
My therapist even said, go for it. You're so good to go. And I was like, I have learned so much, but to your point, I call it new level, new devil. There's just more
So
to
true.
learn.
The relaunch rise has many relaunch roller coasters. Totally get you right now. Yes, that's
So I
exactly.
got married again and we had this whirlwind romance. We went and traveled for 5 months. We got married in Rome. We moved to Valencia, Spain. We bought an apartment in the historical district of Valencia. We spent 6 months renovating it, like customized. Everything was beautiful on the outside. Look, we're living the dream. And 2 years later, I was more unhappy than I'd ever been in my life.
Wait. Where are the kids?
My kids at that point were adults. They had all moved out and they were all living their own life.
Okay, so you're like, wow, I'm going to go do
Empty
this, and it
nester,
sounds
let's
sounds
go.
like a great fairy
It
tale,
was a total
but
fairy tale.
but
Like talk about like photo shoot in front of the Roman Forum and everything, right? But 2 years later, I was desperately unhappy. I was having suicidal ideation. I didn't know what was going on. I was confused. I thought I was the problem, and everything I knew, like everything I knew how to do, all the tools I had, nothing was working. And so I came to this point at the end of 2019, and I call it my sofa of truth. This is a chapter in my new book, The Sofa of Truth. I'm laying on my sofa in the middle of the night after another fight, and I'm laying there in the dark going, something's got to change. It was almost like a phenomenon. I had this clicking inside of me where I was like, I can't do this one more time. I can't sleep on the sofa one more time. I can't have the same argument one more time. What I didn't realize then was that I was in an emotionally abusive relationship.
I was wondering where
Yeah.
this was going to
And so
go.
many women I work with are in that place and they come to me in a state of confusion because when you're in it, it's like this fog and you have no clarity and you think you're crazy. And that's where I was.
But Valerie, explain what that really means.
What it really means is you are with somebody whose way of trying to communicate with you or be in relationship with you is all about power and control. And so the way that they try to control you is through gaslighting, telling you you're crazy, telling you you're the problem, stonewalling, silent treatment. He would give me the silent treatment for like 2 weeks at a time. where we're living in the same house, sleeping in the same bed, working from home 24/7. And he was able to like cut me out like I didn't exist. So it breaks you down and it's almost like a brainwashing. It rewires your brain to align with this idea that you are the problem. And if you would just fix yourself, everything would be okay.
Okay, so let's go back. When did you start to notice this? When did you start to catch on? Like, I got it with the sofa of truth
Mhm.
moment, but when was it like, there's something not right?
Honestly, right away, I knew.
Oh,
I knew. We know. I saw the red flags. Did I pay attention? Of course not. I wanted the fairy tale. It's like, oh, I can deal with this. We can work this out. Right. And then it just progressively got worse and worse and worse. And it really
so
is
how did you break it off?
the relationship.
Mhm.
Well, that's where my book comes in. So the end of 2019, I'm like, something's got to give. My sofa of truth moment was like, girl, you got to get out of this. And I was fantasizing about getting out, going back home. I live in Vancouver. I'm Canadian. I was fantasizing about going back to the Pacific Northwest. The trees, the ocean was calling me, but I was so terrified to leave. I didn't know what that would look like. So January 2020, I have a yearly call with my group of friends, amazing girls, and wherever we are in the world, we get on a call the beginning of every year. We share our word for the year. We talk about, what we manifested the year before. And I know this call's coming up and I'm like, what the hell word am I going to pick? I don't even know what I'm doing tomorrow. How am I going to pick a word for a year? And this word kept coming up and it was selfish. And I was like, oh, I
Mm.
can't pick that. I was raised to be the good girl, the nice one, the pleaser, put everybody else first, be selfless. And that's how I was raised. So it was very counterintuitive to me to imagine picking the word selfish, but it wouldn't let me go. And it just kept haunting me, selfish, selfish. And I was like, okay, well, being selfless actually hasn't worked that well for me. So why not just
That's
go
so
for
true.
it? So I got on that call and I said, you guys, I don't know, but my word is selfish. And they were like, can't wait to see what happens. And I
It's
decided,
interesting. It's interesting because in Q4 I take people through a lot of this. I call it the what do I call it? Believe it board workshop, because not only are you putting a what is outdated, the vision board, the dream board, you're putting this believe it. In all the years, I've never heard somebody say the word selfish.
yeah,
So I'm intrigued, I'm
yeah.
fascinated,
It's a very,
and I also how you bring full responsibility, taking that 100% responsible for yourself and tying it into, I'm not going to be the victim anymore. I am going to be selfish.
mhm.
It's a beautiful process. I'd love to hear how you did it.
It's a very confronting word. It was confronting for me. It felt really wrong. But I said, okay, what if for an entire year I put myself first? I chose myself. Everything I decided was because it was right for me. What if I just did that? What if I saw it as an experiment, a selfish experiment? And so that launched me into a year of incredible growth, incredible healing, radical responsibility, transformation on every level of my life. And it was very different than what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, give us some examples.
Well, my first selfish act was I booked a one-way flight back to Canada. And I said, you know what? I need a bit of space. Just going to take some space. And so I went home. I bounced around, saw my kids, stayed in like 6 different Airbnbs. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And all of a sudden I realized, wait a second, I don't know how to make a decision because the selfless me had always allowed everybody else to decide for me, telling myself that I'm just easygoing. I'm just go with the flow. And then when it was actually just up to me, I was like, what? I don't know how to decide. Where am I going? What am I doing? What I quickly realized is that in order to be selfish, I had to actually know myself.
Hmm.
And I didn't, not in the way that I needed to. And in order to know myself, I had to go way down deep inside. And I had to start excavating all the crap that I had been thinking was myself, people pleasing, easygoing, like the worrier, anxious, fear, all the things I thought were me. I had to strip away and go back to like, wait, who am I when we talk about higher self? The selfish me is the one who's actually connected to my higher self and takes action from there. I didn't know how to do that. So that whole year was really me learning how to do that. And then COVID happened and the borders shut and I couldn't go back. So
I do want to ask you before we continue, a lot of people have challenges going deep. We get to a point, I call it hell in the hallway, right? Where you've all of a sudden you got these doors, you've closed them for so long. And who the heck wants to open up those doors, right?
mhm.
So a lot of times people put even more bricks and they put more cement up and this like, but then somehow our limiting beliefs, I call them the bugs, crawl through the little keyhole, crawl under the door, and eventually resurface. They always resurface. So you're really working through that deep inner your belief system. How'd you do it?
There's a quote from Blaise Pascal that says, every problem is because of man's inability to sit in a room by himself. And that's what I did for a year. I rented an apartment because I didn't know what to do. It's COVID. So I rented an empty apartment. I got a camping chair, sat it in the middle of the living room, and I sat there for a year by myself. And I reckoned with that. I didn't run away from myself. And I sat there and I listened. I listened to
So
my,
literally, how many hours a day would you be sitting there?
well, look, I was working from home. I was still coaching. I was running my business, but I would meditate, journal, listen to
Mm.
music. Then I would go into nature. I was fortunate enough to be near the beach. So I would walk there and I would sit on a rock and sometimes I'd cry and sometimes I'd yell and sometimes I'd laugh and sometimes I'd just be quiet. Nature was huge for me to be able to connect and go deep and open those doors. And so opening the doors, as you said, in the hallway was really just a decision. It was a decision to stay when everything in me wanted to run. And then you find out that it's not the demon, the monster you think behind that door. It's just you. It's just your limiting beliefs. It's your brain. It's your patterns. It's your habits. It's your trauma. It's your, pain. But when you sit with your true self, it's like, she's got you. It's like, we're here. We're doing it. It's messy as hell. But that year changed everything for me.
There's an opportunity that people have, and having gone through some really awful, awful relaunches myself, there's a point where you decide, well, as I said, it's the relaunch rise, where you decide that you're going to level up, that you're going to be done. And I declare it. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. What was the exact moment? Can you remember when you were like, I'm done? I'm done with this past. I'm done with the limiting beliefs. I'm done with my life as it is to date. I'm done being the victim. Do you have a point in time that you actually had that happen?
I do. And it's a chapter in my book called Doorways.
Mm.
And I had bought this one-way ticket back to Canada and I packed my bag. I thought I was going to be gone for maybe a month or so. So I packed a bag and the taxi's coming and I'm standing at the door. And this door we had bought at like a warehouse in Valencia. And it was this old antique door. It was beautiful, mahogany, curved. It was like 10 feet tall. It was this incredible doorway. And I'm standing there with my bag and I'm looking at my husband and he's sitting on the sofa, not looking at me, not getting up. He knows where I'm going. He knows what I'm doing. He's not fighting for me to stay. And so I'm standing there by myself going, do I walk through that doorway or don't I? Do I stay in the familiar, try one more time to make it work? Or do I walk out into something that is completely unknown and completely terrifying? And I'm actually really grateful he didn't try to stop me because it made me make that decision for myself. And I did. I walked through the doorway, and that moment was like, I'm done. I will never go back to abandoning myself. I won't abandon myself again. I will show up for myself. And that's why selfish to me means full of self. And that's how I'm redefining it for me and for the women in the movement is like so full of self that
Hmm.
there's so much overflow that then when you give from abundance, you give from joy, you give from pleasure because you are so full of connection to self. That was my moment of a doorway, using that theme of doorways. That really was the moment where I either was going to shrink back or move forwards.
So that's a powerful I'm done. All right. So you work a lot with women that are relaunching, right? That are going through this. But how do you start women down the path when you're saying you need to be selfish? How does that work?
Yeah. And so many women come to me where I was at the sofa moment or the doorway moment, and they know something's got to change, something's got to give, but they don't know how to even start thinking about that. And so, where we start is we get real with what's really going on, first of all. What's really going on, and what are you no longer willing to tolerate? And get clear about that. What's happening in the present? And then we look at, okay, if that's the case, then where do you want to go? And most women say, I have no clue. I don't know. I don't know what I want. I just know I don't want this anymore. And that's where we start. And then we look at all the reasons and all the ways, just like me, that she got there. And that doesn't mean that what happened to you was okay or that it was your fault. We're not talking about that, but we're talking about right here, right now in the present. It's now your responsibility to deal with it and to start to understand it. So, first comes the clarity. And then we look at all of those programs, the subconscious programming in the mind. How did your brain get wired in childhood to make you believe that in order to stay safe, you had to put yourself last? And then we reckon with that and we start to build new programs in the brain. We start to download new software that aligns with the truth of self, that it's safe to actually put yourself first. It's safe to prioritize you. It's safe to say no, and it's safe to set boundaries. And that inner safety, when you start connecting with your higher self and you start to realize that, like, I've got me. I know how to keep myself safe. Honestly, that's the first step. And then once we do that and we establish that deep inner safety, and then she starts taking action, baby steps, micro changes, as I like to call them. I know you're a big fan. We talked about that on my
I call them
podcast,
pops.
micro pops.
Definitely. But there's one thing I want to say is that when you start to prioritize yourself, and I always say, hey, look at your calendar and it will tell you if you're prioritizing you.
Yep.
Once you realize you're not, because that's usually what happens 99.9% of the time, I like to make sure, and this is for me and my own just well being, I don't want to start my day until 10 o'clock. Yes, there are times that I have to, right? And I get that. But overall, I give myself till 10. A lot of times, Friday will just be my own creative day.
Mm-hmm.
And I plan my schedule around that so that I know when I'm getting drained, when I need, as you said, nature. Nature has a different vibration.
Mm-hmm.
That's why when you go out and you hike or you sit at the beach, it just fuels you because you don't realize that there's a different level there. So I love your ideas around being selfish, and everyone has a different way of being selfish, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like that. Oh, I want to go get a pedicure or a manicure. I'm going to do that. It's the consistency of it. I say that's not nearly enough to just say, well, I always get, a manicure or pedicure, because you're literally only doing that, what, every 2 to 3
Yeah.
weeks,
Yeah.
every 6 weeks for your toes.
Right.
How else do you recommend being selfish?
Well, look, that's self care, and we love that. But selfish is different. Selfish is acting like you love yourself.
Oh, what a
Okay.
great way to say it.
Yeah, let's act like we love ourselves. If I loved myself, because, women come to me and go, like, I'm treating myself like crap in my thoughts, in my actions, and how do I stop that? I'm like, just by talking to me, you are loving yourself. Like, this is action. Listening to this podcast, women are listening. That is you loving yourself. So let's get real about what self-love actually looks like. It's taking action that acts as if I already love myself. And that's devotion. That's devotion to yourself. And when you do that, every time you do that, whether it's yeah, go get a pedicure, but also sit with yourself in a quiet room and get uncomfortable, or go sit in nature and feel the energy. But look, not everyone can take a selfish year like I did, which is why I wrote the book, because I give you selfish strategies, which means wherever you are in your life, whether you were like me with 3 kids and no job and, a marriage that wasn't working and no time, you can still do this, because it's like you can take 5 minutes and you can sit with yourself and you can write in a journal and go, what is the truth? You can do that. Everybody can take 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be a big dramatic thing like mine was, but let's make it every day. I'm going to do one thing where I act like I love myself. And what would that be? And sometimes it's not the self care. Sometimes it's the nitty gritty of like, what if I spent 5 minutes and just sat quietly by myself, whether I got to lock myself in the bathroom or sit in my car, whatever it is, there isn't any way you can't do this. And if you do it every day, it builds and it builds and it builds. And all of a sudden, you start feeling those little glimmers of connection back to yourself. And like maybe you look in the mirror one day and you're like, oh, there you are.
That's so good, because I know for a fact there are a lot of women that are probably listening right now that do not feel the self love. They don't even feel self like. They're in that self loathing,
Self hate.
self sabotage, self hate zone.
Yeah.
And this will allow them to take it, be graceful on yourself, take it easy. Like it's
Right.
not something that is for everyone going to happen overnight. And so,
No.
okay, Valerie, so good, so good. I know you have a book coming out. Give us a little bit more information on that, how we can find you, and how we can continue to connect.
Yeah, so my book is called The Selfish Year, and I really do tell the whole story of this year. And as I said, I give you selfish strategies to apply wherever you are in your life to start acting like you love yourself. And it does really change everything. It changed my entire life. So I tell that story. You can buy that book everywhere. It's coming out September 3rd. So whenever you're listening to this, that is when it's coming out. And then
September 3rd, 2025. We're super
2025.
excited.
Yes,
So make sure everyone hears about this.
that's right.
Awesome.
And
And
then
then where can we find you?
yeah, I have the Selfish Woman podcast, which is an amazing podcast. We have great guests like you on there, and we talk all about this. And then you can find me at valeriejones.ca, all my programs. You can find me on TikTok. I have over 100,000 women on TikTok. I do incredible community building there. So yeah, just go to my website. You'll find it all.
Well, Valerie, thank you for especially the big nugget of the difference between being selfish and self
Mhm.
love, and then trying to weave those two together so that really you're living that rich, relaunch life, that rich life. So, again, what a powerful, powerful story you have. I'm super excited for your book to come out in September, September 3rd. And for everyone listening, you just heard some really great wisdom. You heard some steps that you can be taking. If it resonated and you're like, gosh, this is the exact direction I need to go, make it happen. Relaunch now, right? Why wait? Life is too short, life is too important, and life is meant to be lived. We'll see you next time. And again, Valerie, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, Hilary.